I think we have one of the most beautiful sanctuaries in St. John's. Next year is a special year because it is our 150th anniversary. It's very important to keep the history of this church alive. It's very important to keep any church's history alive. My name is Josh Shea. I was born in Valleyfield, Bonavista Bay, and our family moved to St. John's in 1947, and we lived almost across the street from this church. And I've been going to this church for 74, 75 years. And there are Sunday mornings, particularly when I come out and I open a door that leads into the body of the church, I can see all kinds of people in the pews that have long passed away. I can tell you what they're dressing, I can tell you what they got on. And that's very precious, to be able to do that. And I don't think I'm special in terms of being able to see people that have long passed away. I'm the acting historian, I guess. I don't know if I've ever been given the title, I don't know. This bell was placed here by the family of the late Morrissey Johnson. He was, of course, not only a sealing captain, but he was also a member of Parliament for Newfoundland. It was the wish of the family that this bell be rung at any time that we had a funeral for people that were associated with the sea. We had a gentleman here going back in the 70s, I guess, by the name of Robert McNeely. And he was, I think, the unofficial historian of George Street. And tragically, he passed away. So for a number of years, we had no one sort of looking after our archives or putting up pictures and that kind of thing. So I took on that role. This plaque was placed here at our 140th anniversary, and it's a memorial to Richard Atwell, and he was the master builder of this church. He was noted for his skill in stone masonry. Richard Atwell, as the story is told, received a gift, and he went up a ladder to the tower to show the workers the gift that he had received. In coming down, part of the scaffolding collapsed, and he was thrown to the ground. And we value this memorial very much because it was the only fatality that we had when this church was built. Construction started in the spring of 1872, and the church opened on December the 14th, 1873. And the stone for the church was quarried on south side. The stone was brought to the site by sealers. There was quite a bit of ice in the harbor at the time, and the sealing ships couldn't sail. So of course they had to give them something to do, so they made some sleds and they brought the stone over to the site. So we were practicing United Church in 1925. In the north window of our church, there is a United Church crest, and that was placed there in 1930. I became aware that the archives in most churches are in people's homes. People have newspaper clippings. Only this morning, a lady came to me and says, I have all kinds of music at home with this church's name on it. And I'm looking at her and saying, so she's going to give it to me, and I'll put it in our archives in the choir room there. It's such an interesting thing to read about other people. A number of years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, after the morning service, someone came to me and said there are two people in the church, a lady and a gentleman, who wants to have a tour of the church. So I met them, and they introduced themselves, and they told me they were from Toronto, and they were staying at the hotel across the street. And the lady said to me, I have a memory of being in this church. And then she stopped and she said, I think my mother and father were married in this church. And I went up to the front of the church secretary was still there, and I asked the church secretary if she would go down to the vault, open up the registry of marriages, and see if she could tell me, find the marriage certificate for her mother and father. When the tour was completed, I took them to the side entrance. I thanked them for coming, and I let them walk away, and then I called them back and I said, I have something here for you. And she said, what would you possibly have for me? And I said, well, I have a certificate of your mom and dad's wedding. She started to cry. She said, I can't believe it. She said, how did you know that we were coming here this morning? And I said, you go back to Toronto and tell all your friends that this is the great mystery of your visit to Newfoundland. The acoustics in this church are almost perfect. People that have come in here, musical groups, they're in awe at how perfect the acoustics is. This church, of course, like other churches in the city, did not have upholstered pews. They had wooden pews, and of course in time people felt somewhat uncomfortable. And we had a maintenance gentleman here, and he often would undertake to do things hoping that the people would pay for it after they've seen it. And in this particular case, he bought rolls and rolls of carpet, and he did the seats of the church. The organist was totally bewildered when he saw it, because he thought the acoustics were going to be spoiled as a result of the carpet on the seats. If it did anything, it approved it. All churches are on the decline. I guess it's not important enough to people anymore. I've talked to people who were regular attending people at this church, and the consensus of opinion is, you know, I'm just as happy to stay at home and listen to, you know, music or whatever, you know. People's lifestyles have changed tremendously. And the sad part is, what do you do with these beautiful old buildings? You know, you can't make condominiums out of them all. And, you know, there's always some doubt as to what the future holds. But as long as we have, you know, a record of the history and the people of this church, it would probably live for a good many years, you know. I would hope that people will understand the importance of preserving the history of the church, but any history. And you know, the day will come, of course, when I can't do this, and the question is, who will succeed me in doing it? And hopefully somebody will. My grandson may do this, I don't know.